Welcome to a round table, an interesting round table by Banking Frontiers. So we'll do a round of introductions. Everyone can briefly introduce themselves, and then we will start the actual discussion. Like I said, my name Manoj Agrawal, founder and group editor at Banking Frontiers, and really happy to have all of you here. So let's begin. Please introduce yourself briefly, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pramod Kathuria, founder at Easy Loan. So I have a background in banking, real estate, infrastructure. It's been close to 2 years that we've started Easy Loan, essentially an online digital platform for home loans. And then we are expanding on the product stack and so on and so forth.
Yeah, hi, morning guys. My name is Sanjay Chaturvedi. I represent Vastu Group here and having roughly around 20 years of experience into banking and NBFCs, small to large, and Vastu being into the IT or more into the IT and digital lending, uh, hence participating in the discussion.
Thank you, Sanjay. Welcome.
Hi, morning all. My name is Ravi, career banker. I started my own NBFC in 2018 with the objective of doing account receivable financing for MSMEs. Of course, the 2 years pandemic taught us a lot of things. So we started our journey on the fintech space. So a lot to do in the digital space. In fact, during my banking career as well, I've been involved in internet banking and mobile banking and all of that, but largely in the corporate side. So I'm more of a commercial banker than a consumer banker.
Myself, Suraj Shetty. I had customer experience and learning and development for Kisht and Ring. So Kisht and Ring both are fintech platforms for personal loans, consumer durable loans, and buy now pay later solutions. The only difference between Ring is that Ring focuses more on small merchants pan India, and Kisht is into retail customers. And this roundtable is, I think, would be very insightful for me too, because I personally look into these cases where customers come up with any grievances. Maybe it can be RBI related or it can be fraud related. So I have been working on that. So I think this would be fruitful. Thank you.
We hope so too. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, all. This is Ashish. I'm CFO and head treasury for LoanTap. Mainly, in my role, I of course look at beyond CFO. I look at the operations and the financial controls for the company. So, looking forward for this to understand a little more in detail. About LoanTap, we are a digital lending company. It's a fintech which is based out of Pune, and we mainly do in the personal loan space and SME, MSME through revolving credits.
Great, Ashish. Welcome aboard.
Hi, good morning all. Myself Amit Venkeshwar. I am heading the business piece at LoanTap. Been into banking and NBFC sector for last 16 plus years. With LoanTap for about a year and a half. Majorly looking at LoanTap into digital lending, where we do unsecured personal loans and MSME, and aggressively growing on the MSME sector of Kirana credits merchant financing.
Okay.
A company called RappiPay. And to give you a background, so RappiPay is one of the biggest VCs in India. In volumes, we are doing close to 7,000 crore a month. Now, how can we ensure that existing distribution channels can actually collaborate to set up a new set of neo-banking? So there, we are setting up something which is coming up very closely, probably in December, where the idea is that how can we make this Bharat thing closer to a banking.
Okay.
So it would be a multi-bank model where we want to onboard people or the last mile, that you have a choice of selecting a bank, you get a bank which is in your vicinity, and then you have all the other stuff which is related to banking, say loans, investments, everything on a single app. So it would be assisted plus the direct B2C model. RappiPay's parent company is Capital India, which is again a listed NBFC. We have already a loan app, which is a small B2C app where we are trying and testing waters that what exactly it happens with the small ticket size loans. And that also gets plugged to the neo banking offering which is coming up. Prior to this, I was with PayPal and PayU, mostly into fintech and payment.
Hey, good morning. This is Pravas from Earthen Finance. I'm the founder of Earthen Finance. So Earthen Finance is a fintech NBFC which provide loans to unorganized MSMEs and primarily in tier 2, tier 3 type of cities. When we talk about MSMEs, we have three distinct verticals or channels. One is through the smart branches where we are present in central and eastern part of the country where you do not find a lot of competitions or do not find a lot of NBFC penetrations and all. We also do a lot of digital lending through partnerships. We tie up with a lot of fintechs and provide loans to fintechs or aggregators and provide loans to their merchants. We also do supply chain finance, and through supply chain finance, what is the USP is the small ticket invoice discounting. We do discounting of 500 rupees, 700 rupees type of invoices also. Yep. And in a month, we process more than 4,000 invoices.
Hi, good morning. I am Arun Arora. I head fraud control unit for Ugrow Capital. It's a listed NBFC. We deal in MSME loans. Loans are loan against property, business loan, supply chain, plant and machinery. And we also do partnership and alliances. And we are the pioneer in co-lending in this industry.
Hi, I'm Shrivats Vardarajan. I represent Spice Money Limited. We are India's largest rural fintech organization. I work there as a chief operating officer, heading the tech, digital, data and design team. We work across pan-India now. Overall, I've got around about 23 years of experience, majorly across all segments of BFSI and also telecommunication.
Hi, I'm Yagnesh Parikh. I head Trust Group. Trust Group, they are into the PMS, mutual fund and the fixed income business. I have experience of around 3-4 decades in banking and securities market.
Hi, good morning everybody. I'm Haresh Gujarati from Security, and we are today's event partners, knowledge partners. I lead technology development, product development for this company.
Hi, I am Surendra Tulshan. I am CEO of Cybernet Security Solutions. We are a small company based out of Pune and mainly focusing on cyber security products. And today probably I will discuss one major threat, and it will be of interest to all of you. So please pay attention to that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining in. Let's start our discussion. So we have these terms: fraud, fake, duplicate, copy, triplicate, whatever else. Let's try to get clarity on this so that, should not happen that you are saying something and you mean something and you have a different understanding of that meaning. So in any important document, there's a glossary or kind of thing. So let's quickly spend 1 or 2 minutes on trying to arrive at a meaningful definition that we kind of all agree on. Fraud, fake, duplicate, we can take up with these three. And what do you see as the difference between them?
My sense is a lot about semantics. Don't get me wrong. I could seem like from an old school of thought on this. Any product, any solution, and anything that we get to see or experience, we believe that the initial founders or the creators, we believe, are the original, and the rest of the people who create something like that are either duplicates. That's how I distinguish a duplicate and original, let's say. Duplicate doesn't mean it necessarily has to be fraud. Okay, that's how I see it, And unfortunately, duplicate is a very derogatory word, So, for example, if Paytm has come out with a product today, if somebody else has come out with it, doesn't mean that it's only plagiarism or whatever, right? It can, obviously, innovation only lasts that long. Obviously, you will have competition that will come into the market, be it technology or non-technology based products as well. So that's how I distinguish, let's say, duplicate from an original in that sense. Okay. But purely from a fraud and a fake doesn't necessarily mean that it's with a objective of defrauding people in that sense, right? I think fakes happen because people can't market their own products or solutions as effectively as the guys who produce the original product in that sense. So fakes come out more as sort of, as I said, one could say duplicate or a fake. That's where I think the semantics play out happens.
Yes.
So that's how I see it, So fraud obviously.
So fraud has a negative connotation. Fake need not have a negative.
Exactly, and fraud, and that's how we are seeing it more and more in this today's world as well. You might think something, for example, as simple as going and buying a product even online or an offline as well. You go and buy it in a shop. very similar looking product. I can give you one simple example here. You go into, let's say, a DMart or any of these superstores, an Oreo biscuit. Adjacent to that, you'll find something which looks exactly the same. The packaging, you will realize, and I have actually picked up those thinking it's Oreo. When I came home, it's really, it's not Oreo.
Okay.
But tastes good. You know, so obviously those guys have tried to cheat on, you know, people's this thing in terms of packaging it that way.
Right.
But I think it doesn't mean that the product is bad. We don't know. Scientifically, we don't know whether the product is bad or whatever. That's how I see, I think, many things like that in life, I think, when we come across
Right.
it. But yeah, fraud, particularly in digital world, I think obviously it's clearly intended to defraud people and then sort of, you know, in financial or non-financial. Largely financial, I would think, yeah. Because non-financial, frankly, people don't really recognize the fraud at all. If somebody, cheat on me in terms of picking up my personal data, I think that happens day in and day out. Even we might call it legal, ethical, unethical, whatever you might call it. Like, for example, I log into Google, I'm sure all my data is already taken away. What's about so much about, not getting defrauded or whatever,
So
right?
whether that's fraud or not is kind of subjective.
Exactly. So that's how I see it. Sorry, in a limited way. That's how I see it.
Duplication is not only on a choice, it is sometimes even forced by the regulators also, right? So as you rightly mentioned that, say, Paytm started something doing some on wallet. Now, there were some findings, and that is how they've pushed everything to the new party, that yes, you have to ensure that this is duplicated because beyond this, something is not allowed, right? So even if you try to do something new, you find regulator coming and pushing you back that, hey, this is not the way you want to do it. We want the duplication of this step because it is in our interest and it is easy to catch, right?
Okay.
And on, especially on the, say, fake or fraud side, one thing is very important, that something is created fake of something which is easy recognizable. Say, I cannot create a fake of Sandeep. I can create a fake of Facebook, right?
Okay.
Which means there is already an entity which is well accepted, and then someone tries to ride on that shoulder that, okay, this is the way I can ensure that it is somewhere similar and easy to get a notice and easy to get, say, a scale, whatever we talk about.
So if you look at all the 4 words, right, fraud, fake, duplicate, 3 words, all of them, you need to look it from the eyes of act and law.
Okay.
And when you look it from the act of and law and regulation, all 3 are not allowed. In all 3, why it's not allowed, especially in fraud, all 3 represents an intention. Now that intensity of the intention is different, but that intensity of that intention creates impact on the person who is going to consume or going to use or going to get guided by it. For example, fraud is a willful representation of something which you know, which you are willingly doing a particular act which is going to impact the society at a large. Fake, again, is may or may not be willful, but again, in the eyes of law, or if you bring regulation in place, is again not allowed. Similarly, if you look at duplicate, what regulation says is replicate, not duplicate.
Okay.
Duplicate is again, it's an intent, not a completely intended one, but there may be an intention of fraud, or there will be an innocence, but no one is above law. So there's something called as doctrine of caveat emptor. So when you buy, as a buyer, you need to be careful about fraud, fake, and duplicate. But as a seller or as a representation, all 3 are no in the eyes of law.
So I think largely covered by him, the point that I was saying essentially is, and I'm not looking at the positive side of fake and the acceptance in terms of what is allowed and so on and so forth. Fundamentally, both are wrong. Illegal approach towards, so fake, it could be in the worst case scenario, nothing existence. So you're talking about a thing being there with nothing existing. There is no product and you're saying that there is a product and there is a business model and so on and so forth while there is none. And fraud, like he's saying, could be a willful default with an intention to get benefit and create a benefit for a society, for certain set of people or stakeholders, wherein the charter could be very, very different. So I'm not looking at per se no empathy on fake because it is kind of tastes well and so on and so forth. The fake is fake. And as a society, the moment you start accepting certain benefits which come out of a fake, maybe a cheaper option, whether it is a light or a CD and so on and so forth, then maybe you're allowing misdoing in the society. And I think that's behavioral, and which is where a developing society versus a developed society differentiate themselves.
Okay.
With respect to loans, we take Xerox copy of, KYCs. So we term it as, maybe a duplicate. But if there is an alteration in that document, original, that is fake.
Okay, very good point.
This is the small difference I want. So for loan, you submit your KYCs, your PAN or your Aadhaar, and you submit a photocopy, a Xerox copy of the same with a self-attestation. So that is almost a copy of original. When there is an alteration in that document, you have pasted photograph of someone else or change of date of birth or something else, that is fake thing.
I think we differentiated between fake, duplicate, and the fraud. But what we have to really think is, what if fraud is done using fakes? Okay? So that is important. And I think you discuss mostly from consumer point of view. We have to also discuss how businesses are going to get impacted if fakes or frauds are happening. So for example, if somebody is creating a Paytm duplicate, or somebody is creating Oreo biscuit duplicate, what is going to be the impact on the business that is, that has original product?
Right.
So that we need to understand.
Correct.
The way I see a common element in all three, fraud, fake and duplicate, is theft of an identity. Theft of identity or account, be it a digital or physical. The identity is being somewhere stolen, somehow stolen.
So we can start initially with actually you guys talked about the customer perspective, customer and consumer perspective. But to add to that, is the problem getting worse in general, in the physical space, in the digital space? Is finding a remedy, because information is easily available, is finding a remedy becoming easier or more difficult? Is applying that remedy getting easier or more difficult? And any other concern? Again, all these are from the customer and consumer perspective. Anyone would like to expand on these?
Yeah, in the digital world, the access of information is super easy. And if you Google today, you will find hundreds of videos which says how can you fake a document or how can you, become a fraudster. You will find hundreds of ways to do that. And that makes, and when you are operating in a digital era and you are giving a lot of digital loans, you need to be very careful what type of customers you are onboarding, what type of process you are putting in place so that, those controls are in place so that you will not onboard the fake customers. And a lot of dupes you have to do at your end. You won't find a very straight through dupe what is available in the market or what you can get it. But at your end, you have to put all the check boxes ticked in before you onboard a customer. Otherwise, you'll lose the customer as well as it will hugely impact your financial positions.
Right.
What happens is when fraud is happening on a digital channel, it's more pronounced. People come to know about it faster because it's a digital channel. It's measurable. It can be accounted for. It can be, you can measure how many digital frauds have increased. But when it happens in the offline channel, the measurement is not accurate because the reporting is not done. So we think that when anything goes digital, frauds increase. Actually, it's that the traceability of frauds is easy in digital, whereas in offline, it's not easily traceable. Just like Mr. Ravi Chandra gave the example of Oreo. An Oreo duplicate is happening in, say, Pune. We won't come to know that there is an Oreo duplicate unless it's a very big scam. But anything happening on the digital channel, immediately it's on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So the way digital fraud spread, it's very the information spreads easily. So we feel that digital is very widespread, but offline frauds are also equally widespread. The only thing is they don't get reported and people just leave it and they move forward. They don't go into the cumbersome process of reporting and taking actions. Whereas in digital, the reporting is much easier, I would say. Finding a remedy is easy in digital. For example, if there is a fraud, I can just go to the cybercrime portal. I can file a complaint immediately. I will get a complaint copy in 2 minutes. Now, this is registration of fraud. But finding remedy is still difficult because no matter, even if I file a complaint online, there is a human being sitting who has to process, and he will be getting thousands of complaints pan India, lakhs of complaints. So again, the remedy is not easy. It's very time taking, like it can take 6 months to 1 year. And usually the remedy that businesses do is that they try to convince the customer that, okay, this is the financial fraud that has happened. For example, it can be a card related fraud. There is a transaction of 2,000 rupees. And if the insurance cover is there, then the customer is protected. If there is no insurance cover, either the customer would take the loss if he has given the PIN. If it's the bank's fault, then the bank would look for compensating the customer, and the case would get closed rather than taking it to a third party and stretching the case. So both customers and businesses look for faster solutions because they ultimately want to move ahead. They don't want to drag the issue too long. So I think the remedy is not easily available. People are creating their own remedies so that fraud can be contained. The current fraud can be contained, but they are not able to immediately fix the root cause, because finding the root cause would require an agency, a government agency, to get into the root cause, because a private company or a business cannot get into the root cause on who is doing the fraud or get him arrested, because they'll be too busy with their own processes.
So interesting, I think, point that you made is that in the digital ecosystem, the resolution of fraud does not requires lesser legal process and gets resolved faster.
The reporting is easier.
But even resolution is, in the sense, the example you gave of a credit card being misused, for example, it gets resolved. I mean,
Correct.
It may not be the best solution, but something does happen.
Correct.
So some kind of conclusion happens faster in the digital space than in the physical space.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Just
That's a very good point, actually.
No, I just want to add one point on that. He said the remedial on digital, I think it's available. There are agencies available. When you find a fake app or a phishing mail coming, you can use the DMARC system, or there are agencies, when you report to the fake app, they immediately follow up and bring down that app. So those remedies are available. You need to approach appropriate agencies who does this job very nicely. We have appointed, I'm not giving the name, but those are available.
I think hands down it is becoming higher, bigger, gigantic, and so on and so forth. And I would not look at the frauds and fakes, the way one can impact an election decision, one can impact the mindset, the behavior, to UPI. I'm told some 70% plus is the kind of penetration with the mobile financial savvy consumer base, and all that is happening, and hence the ability to commit a fraud or a fake element is significantly higher. When you were doing checkbooks, yes, you can forge signature, but today there is you can continue to do that, and you can sort of also do it a lot on the digital payment, this thing. When you were sending emails, the snail mails, today you can send emails and this is bonanza and you won this and that and so on and so forth. All that, there's a whole world out there which is kind of only dedicated on digital fraud, and hence it has become big. It has gone beyond geographies. One can sort of look into personal information, misuse it, and we hear it. These are scams which are not happening earlier. These are new to sort of family kind of thing. I also think somewhere where you want to ease it or make it convenient and make it that much sort of digital, native, your ability to improve the efficiency and make it a lot more easier on the financial side has kind of opened that scenario. On how do we curb it? I think the information available now today, you can look at a customer, Obama, we all know Osama, got picked because of digital this thing. You pretty much know where people are, what they're doing. You can look at their patterns. I'm giving one example, but yes, there is an answer also lies somewhere there. For that, you need to have processes and laws which are kind of supporting that, and there's a journey. I don't see this kind of not being curbed. It will eventually sort of have some solution on the tech side, but definitely there is more fraud likely or fake likely happening because of the changing trend on the digital side.
So I think if we see the tendency of fraud and how it's happening, generally fraud happens more on a vulnerable section of society, right? I mean, most of the frauds happens to people who are used to technology but who doesn't understand that remedy available, right? So for them, I think problem is becoming a little worse because technology spend it much faster. They can access everything on their cell phone, but at the same time, their financial education is not, up to, it's not expanded that fast. So that way, I think it's becoming much more, painful for the society at large. For us, because we are aware, like we all knew that there's a multiple things available, we can complain for a particular app and that can be, remove. But same thing should happen to address this problem at large, that should be expanded. That's what my point is.
Consumer perspective or a customer perspective, you see the intensity is worsening because there is a clear digital divide. So you have got fraud or a fake or a duplication available in the physical world as well as in the digital world. When I say physical world, you have fake currencies. When I say phygital world, if you go to an ATM, you've got sockets which are available which can steal your data, which is a combination of an hardware and a software, and again there is a fraud available. Similarly, when you look at the digital world also, there are significant amount of fraud is available. Again, there is a divide. You have digitally savvy customers who get defrauded with the complexity of systems they use. Accordingly, the fraud penetration is happening. And also with phygital model or assisted model in rural India is again getting worse because the entire Bharat or India is moving towards digitally savvy customers and digitally assisted customers as well. So the intensity is equally getting worsened with more adoption of technology, with more adoption of assisted models, and also with the physical model like fake currencies and others. Now, when you look at the information age, yes, there is a lot of attempt that has been made by regulators where it has been guided to all the corporates and organizations, banks, financial institutions to educate the customers through SMS, information, emailers. So as far as education is concerned, yes, it is happening. The attempt has been made, and today if you talk about it's a $1 billion industry today. When you look at information security or when you look at creating solutions for solving the problem. But are we there today? We are not, because the pace in which we are growing digitally or in a phygital model and assisted model, I don't think the information security catch-up or the physical security catch-up has managed to make that. Even today, you've got what you call as automated ATMs with surveillance cameras readily available, but still getting defrauded and getting looted. The problem statement is we can't look things only from tier 1, tier 2 perspective. You need to look at financial inclusion and the fraud perspective of tier 3, tier 4, and the knowledge bank, which the not so digitally savvy customers are the one who are going to be your tomorrow's customer. So are we ready with solutions for tomorrow's customers who are going to become digitally savvy? No. Are we ready for even helping the so-called digitally savvy customers? If you take use cases of OTP frauds, most of the OTP frauds have happened with educated customers, graduates and above, people working as a CEOs and tech organizations and CEOs also get defrauded. So the concern is taking use case wise solutioning, and being in a reactive mode is actually not helping. How do you be proactive is more important.
That's a very good point.
I think you put a point that frauds are tracked. It can be easily tracked in digital world. Yes, it can be tracked, provided. And in digital world, when you fake something, you ensure that organizations cannot track between the fake and the original. That is the biggest problem. So what happens is, only if the customer suffers and customer goes to, say, a bank and says, I lost money, then only bank is going to realize that that customer has lost money. Then it becomes a dispute whether it was a intention of customer or it was really a fraud. Okay? But in case of probably physical fake, one can track it, where the physical fake product has evolved and where it is getting distributed, and somebody can block it. Another issue with digital fakes is digital fakes can be created very easily and it can be distributed very easily. It can, and especially using social media, it can be propagated to millions or billions in few hours, and the impact is going to be very big. For example, if somebody is putting a fake video about something, immediately within 5-10 minutes, it's all over the place, and then people start commenting without checking whether the video is correct or not, you know. So even in financial world, the impact can be very, very huge. And as you rightly said, we are right now reacting rather than we are, proactively blocking it. Others, like you mentioned, there are various ways of bringing it down. That is only for us, but for hackers, that is totally useless.
What kind of digital financial assets are most easiest to fake and also most difficult to fake? What kind of assets can actually create a bigger problem? Something may be easy to fake, but you can't do much with it. That's not a problem. And what are the risks to the customers? Let's keep the customers out, I think. We really understand that. This is a B2B forum. Let's focus on the risks to the financial organizations. Whether it's a fake website or a fake app or a fake QR code or whatever it is. What is the impact? What is the risk? Not the impact, the risk.
Kind of gives you a legitimacy of existence, and if there is no footprint, or the footprint itself is kind of completely fake from an existing perspective, and there is nobody, if any of the financial institution cannot track you down to a particular address, then it is a big problem. It leads to you accessing SIM cards at a very rudimentary level to your ability to take loans, to in general, show kind of credibility against your property and so on and so forth. I think it kind of starts, these are footprint, and I'm not restricting only to financial, it can also be non-financial fraud that it can lead to.
The digital loans kind of thing, you are not aware who the person is applying. He is just uploading his document, maybe an identification document, address proof, a bank statement, or an income tax return. It's easy to, identity theft here. It's very easy to do that. Now it depends upon the companies, what checks and controls they have, made on that. There are various APIs nowadays which authenticate the information from the source. For example, this Aadhaar, OTP-based Aadhaar. For example, PAN, NSDL. For example, GST data, you can extract directly from the source. So, but there are few things which are, still, they are not that much, you are not able to authenticate from the source, like collateral address, property documents. It is, the repository is not there still now. The work is still going on that front. But yes, from identity theft is, I think, the biggest challenge in digital lending.
Can you move up one level from transaction level? Because that has been really discussed n number of times in n number of forums. But at a asset level, for example, banking frontiers, there must be copies of that .China, .Brazil somewhere, maybe copies of your bank, your organization's websites, or email addresses. Email addresses get faked a lot. So a recent case about changing the font of the letters to make it look like yours. This kind of A versus that kind of A, something like that.
I would like to add to this. I think when it comes to banks and NBFCs, we have recently seen there is a rise in payment gateway, fake payment channels made for different banks and NBFCs. So for example, opening a payment gateway or getting a payment link is very easy now. You can just go to any payment service provider, Razorpay or PayU or anyone. They have, individuals can create their payments for small businesses. So they can just open that. They can use a logo of the company. For example, I can use a logo of a bank. I can write the contact center. I can just replicate the look and feel. And these links can be given on social media and other fake contact centers. And customers fall for it. Usually what happens is customers, the modus operandi that we have seen is a number is floated on a website, on a fake website or Google. A person calls on the number for a settlement or repayment, and the fraudster would offer a settlement option. Instead of 10,000, please pay 8,000, we will close your loan. And he will end up paying. He will get a link on WhatsApp. It won't be SMS because SMS can be easily identified, but WhatsApp, they usually happens because SMS always comes with a company header. So frauds can be identified, but in case of WhatsApp, you just need a DP of the company logo, and the customer thinks that the company is sending me a WhatsApp message. So and then they end up paying on the link without knowing that this is not a company link. So this is much easier right now to create a repayment front end for the customers and defraud them.
Digital world, literally everything can be faked. Okay, I am talking more as security guru. Websites can be faked, apps can be faked, your digital identity can be faked. You can have fake customers in your loan apps. You can have fake KYC. You can have fake fingerprint which can be validated against Aadhaar database. So basically my fingerprint Harish can use and he can do transaction as Surendra. You can have fake documents. You can have fake video KYC. That is also happening. So we think, oh, video KYC is the safest because I am sitting in front of camera and my picture is going perfect KYC. But that is not the case. So literally credit cards are faked. Even I will give you some example, like even rides on Ola or Uber can be faked. So literally everything can be faked and they are very easy to do it. So, and as far as impact to the business, it depends on the business. And since it is very easy to fake and it can be, lot of people can do it at the same time. You can do it for a lot of customers at the same time. The impact can be very high. It can be, if it starts happening, then some businesses have to be closed down. And I'm going to make a presentation. That's where I'm going to describe how it can impact big business.
Anyone wants to give some kind of analytics you have done on the overall impact of duplicates, fakes, frauds, all those things on the organization as a whole? Are you guys tracking this or have some sense on what is happening?
In all financial services organization, the first point, whatever he told as an aspect is called as an entry point risk. In any transaction, there's always an entry point. And when you look at the entry point, you need to start analyzing the loopholes within the validations of the systems that are available in terms of credentials, validations, and everything. So in terms of statistics, if you look at it, I'll take different use cases for different lines of business within the BFSI. So if you look at financial transaction systems, like for example, he used an example of Aadhaar being cloned. How is it getting cloned, right? So there is a biometric in which you put the fingerprint and then the Aadhaar transaction goes through. Now, in that device, when you put a silicon clone, your fingerprint gets imprinted into it. And you can use that silicon into another device, fake, and do the transactions. That's the first entry point risk that is there. Now, this is an entry point because that's the first check of validation that comes in. What are the other entry point risks that the organization holds is the website and your mobile app. It becomes a face for the organization. And putting a user ID and password becomes an entry point risk again. Okay. So how do you put the checks and balances to ensure that you have an algorithm running to give various permutation combination, because it becomes very static, right? When you look at from a consumer lens, when you look from a design perspective, you say, okay, let's put only user ID, password, MPIN, or allow him to put cache so that there is no robotic kind of an attack that's coming inside it. And then eventually these entry points, elements which becomes granular, when you narrow down, becomes very static. And then it becomes very easy for a fraudster to understand the different algorithm and work towards that. Okay. And that's how your entry point risk in web and app needs to continuously change. Also in terms of, when you talk about entry point risk, what is an entry point for any consumer to come in, right? It talks about your complete onboarding of a consumer or onboarding of your channel partners. It completely deals with KYC. You have alternative mechanisms where Government of India has created a repository in terms of DigiLocker, in terms of Umang app, where you can check into the repository where a trusted certificate comes from the government saying that, okay, this is a trusted document. How you're going to leverage that in that entry point risk becomes very important. So statistically, if you see, most of the risk and frauds happens when your entry point layer is weak. Okay. And if you arrest that and if you, and you can't, there's no perfect stage to it. So you need to keep on changing the combination. You need to mature the entry point risk with the digital ecosystem, building it further. Which means every 3 months you need to bring new combination. It's a pain for the customer, but it's a pain worth to go through rather than losing money and then going for getting the money back.
Interesting.
After entry point, you need a session management also robust.
Absolutely. So
because that becomes a very weak point otherwise.
Yeah. So gateway, if you stop the car at the gate, the terrorist is not going to come in. So if you make the gate stronger and the checks and validation stronger,
Probably you guys remember there was a lot of resistance when Aadhaar was launched. And some of the activists had concern that our fingerprints or biometrics can be stolen at entry point. But in Parliament, that time Mr. Chidambaram was the finance minister, he said, no, we have a very good data center. So the issue is not whether fingerprints can be stolen from data center or not. Fingerprints can be stolen from the entry point, you know. So we have to really differentiate from where the leakage can happen and where the impact is going to be bigger, you know.
The risk which it poses to organization is mainly, besides the financial risk, I think it's more of a credibility risk, right? Because once, like Suraj mentioned, if somebody is taking, a payment on, by giving fake links, next time, even if you try to do original, customers will not do that, right? So it becomes a bigger issue. I mean, you see in organizations like, if you say, for example, OLX, if you see, very good platform, but then generally first thing which comes at it, there are a lot of fake thing which happens.
Oh.
So it's a credibility loss, right? So that's a very risky thing as far as frauds are concerned.
What are the varieties of fake apps that you are seeing? And not just financial apps, maybe even the finance industry gets affected, fridge or air conditioner or TV. And there is some fake merchant out there through whom this transaction is happening. And maybe if you're giving a loan for that or something like that, then those kind of ecosystems we can talk about. Because you're ultimately, it's not just you and the customer. There's an ecosystem, whether it's an airline ticket booking or buying at a merchant or whatever else it is. Anyone wants to comment on the ecosystem, how it is evolving and how the risks are rising?
26th December 2017, our PM launched BHIM app. Okay. By 2nd of January 2018, there were 32 fake BHIM apps floating around.
Oh.
Okay. How many days? 8 days. I'm not saying that all 32 were doing some fraud, but they were look-alike apps. Okay. And it took 3 months for NPCI, a government body with all the power they have, to identify those 32 apps and bring them down. That does not mean that was the end of the road. By the time they brought those 32 apps, hundreds of others came. And what variety, I don't know. Literally, I think everything can be duplicated.
What kind of apps do you see getting duplicated? Is it Uber, Ola? Is it shopping app? Is it something else? Trading app?
So the moment you use the word ecosystem, right? When you say ecosystem, there are two things out here. One is the known ecosystem, which is visible to everyone, and one is the unknown ecosystem.
Right.
When you say unknown ecosystem, the ecosystem like dark web and other things starts coming into it, right? Which operate very prominently in this industry. The moment you talk about fake apps, a person tries to invest time, material, and money into an app which is more famous and prominent. An unknown app where consumer is not there, they will not come.
Correct.
So something which is well-known, which is well-promoted, and which is more of a footprint is there in the app, and which is very visible nowadays in Play Store and App Store, that what is the number of downloads that have happened. So sometimes what we do also, in order to prove the point, the organization goes and digitally advertise a lot of things which are very intrinsic and internal to the organization. But to promote the app, they say, okay, 1 million download, 50 million download. Now it's a very easy data point for any fraudster to identify, okay, this is the app I need to fake. Okay, now what is the intention? When he puts an attempt into that app, he doesn't bother to create the entire app. He bothers to create only two things. One is to get the credentials, which means the first entry point. Again, I'm coming to the entry point, which is name, user ID, or registration, where your data has come into it.
Correct.
And once you get the user ID and password, it's easy to go to the original app, download it, and do the transactions on your behalf. So it's a very simple thing to identify, yes, fake app in the ecosystem exists. Why the fake app exists is because we advertise ourselves that we are famous. This is the downloads, and we expose ourselves.
Famous fake app is of Paytm, which people don't know, but that is happening. You might have heard people calling, there is a movie made on that, Jamtara. People call Paytm user, aapka KYC karna hai. So, they ask user to download AnyDesk and give control over their phone. So the user, caller gets control over user's phone, and then what that caller is doing, he is uninstalling the original Paytm app and installing a rogue or fake Paytm app on the mobile, which user does not realizes, okay? And then once the a fake or a duplicate or rogue app is installed on that user, then he tells user, by the way, आपका user ID password मुझे दो मत और OTP देना नहीं, आप उसको login करो. So user logs in, he gets OTP and he enters OTP, he registers that fake rogue app, and बाद में पता चला मैंने कुछ किया नहीं, मेरे पास 4 बार पैसा निकल गया मेरे account से.
Let's stick to English.
Okay, no. Yeah, so basically he says the money has gone out. So this is what, I think this is one of the famous fake app floating around, you know.
Yeah, even if you go to the transaction level, you will find most of the Chinese loan apps. You know, all those look similar, all those have similar type of, I mean, there will be only few color pattern difference or UI UX difference, but every screen by screen you will find lot of similarity into it. Yes. So it is actually, it's a one framework and hosted with several names and several, IDs. And as you rightly said, most of the time, re-KYC apps are very, very prominent fake apps, which, you get a call from the call center or you get an SMS that your credit card is going to be banned, you do a KYC, and then it will lead to a KYC downloading applications which take your credentials and, harvest that.
So Manoj, one thing is very important especially in all these fake apps in the ecosystem. They know that the longevity of this app in your mobile is not going to stay. They want to do maximum damage in a low, say, timeline. So that, say, example, if I know that my Paytm app, as Agrawal sir said, that I know that something has been wrong in my app, some money has gone, right? Now, there is a chance that I will uninstall that and I will go out of that. But the maximum loss has been made in the small time of frame. So, whenever we talk about fake apps in the ecosystem, even if a travel app is being fake, now they want to, as Srivat said, that they would not create the complete app at all. What they will do is that they will create a, say, Malaysia ka trip, right? And it is available in, say, 20,000 rupees. Now, what is coming here is that you have to make that attractive, that someone actually gets eluded to it. And then there is a call to action which is required. Until unless someone does a call to action, it is not going to impact. So that's the case which we feel. And second thing which is very important, especially for the businesses like us, we are mostly people who are being invested by people who want to see India or Bharat as to grow and grow as fast. Now the challenge which comes and thrown from them is that how easy can you bring that traction in? Now one has to understand that Bajaj Finserv was not built in a day. You cannot create a Bajaj Finserv in another 3 months. There's an investment of time, the accuracy and the processes, which has made them so accurate now. So that's the piece we all have to understand, that in the hurry of getting a traction, are we not getting to that steps which are very much required, or we want to just skip it for the sake of traction? So that's the piece actually as a business is very important.
Just a point that you were asking what is the typology of, the understand. So I think there are a couple of them which are more like Trojan horse kind of approach, wherein they come in with a certain offering which is attractive, and whether it is wellness, whether it is gaming and winning lottery and so on and so forth, and eventually may leak the consumer information. There are some which have a facade of payment, wherein you will sort of enter your credential and eventually in the lure of winning or a discounting, and eventually that financial information is passed on. So it's both way, consumer and this thing. And what we've seen maximum such thing happening is wherein there is either a rush of excitement in gaming, crypto, financial benefits, wellness, health, and so on and so forth is something wherein you find, or cooking. So these are the elements which typically either the kids are liking it, people who are at home, elderly, they're liking it, and they're more naive to sort of bite into these kind of apps, and hence they end up downloading it and start trading.
So I think this is one of the biggest chapter of the digital frauds today, the apps one. And I've been using this for the last 10 years, and possibly India is passing through, we have discussed a lot about this transition phase. So we are digitizing everything, and in rush to digitizing, we are keeping a record of the frauds, which eventually happened with me also. And I mean, you rightly mentioned, it is not about tier 2, tier 3 onwards. It is very well placed in tier 1 as well, and in the metros, because we all are very smart, but possibly our mobiles are not so smart, which gives us neither the app, which is the Play Store, gives us the option to tick that, okay, we don't want to share the contact details, and normally we keep majority of our stuff either in the contact space, or we get through the SMSs, like the Paytm or whatever we use. Everything is linked somewhere to the mobile. Now, this instrument itself is not so secured, and it is vulnerable to all the apps owner. So whether it is all of our companies who are, asking customers for millions of downloads and all, but finally it actually leads to an encroachment of their privacy, because somewhere we are controlling their all activities. How many breath we are taking in a day, possibly the mobile is aware, and somewhere it is going to the lender without information of the borrower. So to that extent, we have reached to our levels, but neither the control is there in the mobile, nor the government has come out with a policy where they can restrict, the kind of control one should give. Like in case of an Aadhaar, when Aadhaar came, freely it was available. Thousands of copies, even in a building premises. Like today, when we enter into any of the premises in the building, we have to simply, give our mobile number without any leeway of not giving. Now, if you don't have a mobile, possibly you will not be allowed to enter into the building also. That situation can come. So, I mean, the control mechanism is not there. In the rush to the digitization, possibly we have to look at the app thing very carefully, what kind of apps we are downloading, and possibly we have to, work on a kind of solution to this app-related, access giving to possibly everyone.
Amongst all the things that you discussed, one thing which my view is that as much as so much of fake apps going around, so many frauds happening around, consumer awareness also is going up significantly, I think. As I think gentleman rightly pointed out, that whenever we see a video and suddenly we start commenting on it without realizing whether they are frauds or not, fake videos or not, I think that awareness is coming in consumers as well. I think that, which is a good thing. I think as much as we have increase in frauds happening as well, at the same time, I think consumer awareness is also growing on this, and that thanks to social media and all of the other, ways of communication. And it's not restricted only to specific towns or, categories of users, age or anything like that. In fact, I have a mother who's 78 and she uses mobile apps fantastically. I think she's on mobile banking and she knows when a Paytm guy calls, she doesn't take the calls. Because, and these are all experiences all of us, I'm sure, would have seen. And imagine, and she's not too literate too. And at the age of 78, using smartphones and knowing what to take, what not to take, that speaks of awareness, right? And I'm sure children do that as well. And youngsters are much better, obviously, much better than us, for me, for sure. They know what to do, what not to do. So awareness is growing too. I think let's not miss that point.
Use the word ecosystem, right? What we must all, when you use the word ecosystem, right? How does an app or a website get published, right? You need to have a domain. You need to purchase a domain. And for an app to be published in Play Store or in Android stores, it needs to get certified. Now that is an entry funnel point for you. So is the domain purchase regulated today? Is it governed by law? No, it is not. So that is the first loophole that we have got. So the moment when you have restriction, like for example, if you want to go to ROC, Register of Companies, and give the name, it gets audited and then the name gets finalized. It takes 1 month for you to get the name and then it gets registered. There is no such process in case of domain. You've got GoDaddy and other people who are coming. Domain registration has become a business. You have a domain you have identified, and then with a little bit of spelling change, it gets approved.
Exactly.
Okay, second, in terms of app stores, all this entire screens, workflows, and everything has to get submitted, has to get approved, and then it gets published. When you solve the problem at this end and when you make it regulated and legalized, your 80% of the problem is solved. Because rest all which we spoke about, knowledge, awareness, credential, authentication, everything is a postmortem. So that's the ecosystem. When you use the word ecosystem, this is the ecosystem that needs to get regulated, monitored, and controlled by relevant countries, because most of these domain and everything is owned by countries, by the organization which is not situated out of India. So how much do you nationalize these processes, right?
Okay.
Becomes also a crucial thought process from a security perspective which Government of India needs to think, or the respective body which thinks in the Information Security Act needs to incorporate these things on people who are private operators who work on domain expertise and app, needs to get legalized and boundaried within the geographical boundaries of the country with a limited permission to be extended, because we cannot restrict, you can't have a restricted trade practices, but it needs to be regulated. So the time has come, you have to regulate it.
Rather, the trend is other way around. Governments do not want Google monopoly or Apple monopoly. So if you followed the news in February this year, US Senate said Apple that it is not necessary Apple app has to be downloaded from Apple Play Store, because that is sort of creating a monopoly, you know. So now one can download Apple app from any website or any store. Now you cannot force every website to have all those controls, you know. Same thing recently, if you followed the news, India, I think, put a penalty of some 900 odd crores on Google because Google was forcing people to use Google Play Store. Okay? So I think the trend is other way around.
When you purchase a domain, right, the purchase of domain is today a free trade. It's a commercial business. That's not under the purview of law and that's not regulated. Similarly, irrespective of how do you access the app or download it from app, the app needs to be published into a stores. It may be a store or a marketplace. That needs to get regulated and audited, because that becomes a risk point. Because till the time that is not regulated and audited, your risk will always be posted.
App can be uploaded on my website. So government cannot go and check billions of websites.
So it is like that when new company comes up, you have to go to the registrar, register for it, take the GST number and all that. There is a regulator process to do that, and then only you get a company. Similarly, any app or any domain name, when you get registered, if some sort of regulatory process comes, in that case, what he's saying is that entry point level can be, or ecosystem can help a lot in controlling all this stuff of fake and frauds.
There are a lot of innovative applications. You just can't keep control on it without any, website domain registration or company formation. Also, you can open an applications and host it, right? So those type of innovations will go away if you put everything under control and put through those processes in.
Sure. How many of you have experienced setting up your own app on Google Play, Google Play Store, and I'm sure most of you, the amount of, at least Apple Play Store for sure, takes so much of details into account. It takes 3 to 4 weeks for you to get registered and so on. Are we saying that's not regulated in some way? It is regulated. Maybe the government of India doesn't put its stamp on it. Leave alone all of that. Even in a brick and mortar scenario, sir, I think all of us registered companies, most of the frauds are committed by registered companies only, not unregistered. In fact, we are in the unsecured lending space. I'm sure people who do small ticket lending to Kirana stores, I'm sure there's a lot of it, they find lesser frauds as compared to lending to larger companies. So in fact, that's the trend. So it's not about anything. I think ecosystem has to sort of adapt to a lot of these things as well. It's not about registration. Of course, I tend to agree. In fact, from a purely an entry point perspective, it's not just about even when you're registering an app, can there be more regulation? But practically, is it possible?
So let's talk a little bit about technology. What kind of technologies do you think are being used to create these fake and duplicates and frauds? And then what kind of technologies do you see controlling them?
Yeah, so these days, through AI and ML, you can fake any documents, and also through AI and ML, you can identify any of the fakes. So, both identification and creation can be done through putting a proper AI and ML framework, which can give you a lot of, confidence in terms of curbing those?
I'll talk more on the prevention part. There are a lot of information security tools that are available from a lot of partners, which helps you to sniff to identified and throw you results of lot of near to similar web and app that is available, which comes in the form of a report which you can go quickly and bring it down. Even to the extent that when your digital assets are utilized by your own channel partners, you need to have strong policies, right? Because a lot of your channel partners, they work so closely with you that they start owning the brand. That's nothing wrong in that.
Okay.
But when they start owning the brand, they knowingly, unknowingly start using the digital assets that's published into their own promotion stands. Now this need not be only web and mobile app, right? This can also be digital mailers, promotions, campaigns which they do using the company logo, which itself is a digital asset. Okay, so this is spread across. So what happens is when this footprint goes across your social media and it goes across your digital footprint, you need various tools which identifies that how many of your footprint in different forms and formats is available. Not only website app, but also in terms of promotions, mailers, information that is going, utilizing your logos and also registered information of your branch addresses and everything. So there are tools available which identifies and gives. Again, it is after the damage has been done. And then
Okay.
you need to pull it down, and then you need to again reframe your policies and make it more regulated in the form of educating the channel partners and putting policies and controls in place.
Do you see that actually being the case in your discussions with technology partners? And have you come across someone trying to use blockchain as a enabler for fraud, or creating a duplicate blockchain maybe, so that the end customer is not aware that, okay, this is happening through blockchain, so I can readily trust it. That's the bigger concern for me. Even you as an organization, I'm concerned that you get kind of fooled into adopting a blockchain solution just because it is blockchain. That kind of caution has to be there.
See, one of the prominent reasons why you don't come to hear about too many of blockchain frauds is because the adopting of that technology itself is too costly. To have that infrastructure itself, you need to have in heavy investments. So nowadays, even fraudsters, they talk about ROI, right? They see easy solutions to get quick money. They don't want to invest heavy on to duplicate something which may give them good dividend, but they need to invest a lot of things into it. So that's one of the reasons the entry point is restricted because of the capital investment that needs to happen to build in that technology and the resources that you need to put in.
Right.
Second thing, the intellectual that is required to build in the public-private key, the nuances, the architecture and everything is quite different and more, it's like Web 3.0 and beyond.
Okay.
Which is yet to be adopted, even understood by most of the corporates today. So if you go and talk to most of the technologies in the corporate, they rely on partners to bring some use cases in blockchain, but not very commercially heavy, but use cases which can be more in parallel to their processes. So this technology is not yet evolved so much that the fraudster can also come in and defraud you. And also the consumers are very light on this because many don't understand the subject. Some who understands little bit on the subjects do at a transaction level.
Okay.
So your fraud cases comparatively is less in blockchain. And if you look at the adoption in India also, it's something digitally savvy customers are the one who take punt in.
Only those.
Yeah. Coming to the blockchain, one biggest challenge is it's not like only you implementing that in your organization. The entire ecosystem has to evolve so that, at any point and every point you have those checks in place. But if you just implement, that in your organizations, probably you may be fraud proof for the processes what you are doing. But nevertheless, it will not, reduce the fraud what is coming into your system.
Once chain is created, it is safe. But the creation of chain itself can be fraudulent. Okay?
Okay.
So again, it boils down to the entry point. So at the entry point, if I upload a fake document or sign with a fake public key, private key, then the whole chain can be compromised. But once it is created, then it is difficult to.
I don't think blockchain is suitable for most of the applications, especially on the transaction side.
Okay.
Because most of the transaction has to be instant and low latency. Blockchain does not serve that purpose when the volume increases. If it is a very few, volume is fine. Otherwise, it does not help, number one.
Right.
Blockchain is useful, my view, is only when you don't trust other party or somewhere. Only those places blockchain will be useful. Otherwise, it is completely overkill or overhead. either performance, latency, or cost-wise. This is my view.
Can you talk about various technologies that are being put to use by fraudsters and rogues?
There are many technologies available to do fraud as well as to arrest the fraud. However, what is missing is probably a cohesive effort to understand what is happening, what frauds are happening. I don't see an industry body. I don't see a cohesive government effort or regulatory effort is far too behind in the game. There is no body which can distribute the information about problems and the solutions in a cohesive manner. There we are lacking in effort. Technologies are there for the problems. Once you understand it, you can effectively solve the problem. But how to solve the problem is not clear.
So machine readability or machine recognition or that kind of approach is required to detect fakes and duplicates and those kind of things. Are we moving up from we are doing a good job, I think, in detecting frauds at the transaction level. But whether the domain is a fraud, whether the email domain is a fraud, whether the app is a duplicate app, there has to be some technology that the organization and the consumer both can use actually. That automates kind of. Do you see any progress? Do you see any brainstorming happening on that? So that it's not left to as a manual process. And if that person leaves your organization, then again you're in trouble. How do you automate some of these things using different technologies? Something that can respond quickly. Yes.
So there are a lot of technologies available at an organization level. When you look at the entry point, the first entry point becomes your email solutioning. So it's quite simple that when you select your email solutioning, it should have an pre-built lot of DLP, DRM solutions pre-built into it, and also filtrations where it identifies the domain. And there are a lot of solutions which Microsoft, Google's have built in, where it identifies the patterns and it blocks at the first layer level, at the technology layer level, even before it get delivers. But in my experience, at least in a month, I get 2 such mails. Even where that has been managed to defraud and it comes to it. So it's a combination of 2 things. One is it has got a pre-built filter, but the pre-built filter comes with the various patterns that you recognize over a period of time, which means something needs to be reported back to the system to build the intelligence. So it can't be that you build an intelligence and the intelligence works automatically. No, the intelligence also building requires a layer of information to be built in smartly.
That's a learning system.
It's called as machine learning.
Right.
So your entire ecosystem or the technology system should have a learning capability systems readily available. Now, when it comes for app capability, right? Each individual organization, when they help the consumer to download the app, can by default proactively give plugins, which it can proactively tell the consumer that when he's trying to download an app which is a fake or which is malicious, it can throw an alert. So that's a moral responsibility of every organization to technology inbuilt those things. Some can make monetization money out of it and say that, okay, this is an app that detects, it's a plugin that you have installed, it detects proactively malicious app and throw an alert. So these capabilities are readily available. Now this consumers doesn't know because it's not promoted well, but organizations, financial institutions can take this as a moral responsibility, plug in their app and help the ecosystem to become better.
Okay. Interesting.
That's how you can manage this.
I would say at Kist, since we are digital first, we have seen a lot of fraudsters coming up with dummy numbers, contact center numbers, email IDs, websites, and even fake apps. So even the name would be a bit different, but it would be a lookalike kind of thing. So what we did is we have a separate, as he rightly said, being reactive, it's necessary to be proactive. And so in order to be proactive, what we have done is we have a separate 3-member team, which purely works on fraud identification. Day in and day out, they usually keep scanning through different Google search results, social media, as well as Google Play Store and App Store to look for apps that have any fraudulent kind of an image, or websites or blogs where numbers are being marketed by the name of the company's brand. So
and they do come up with a lot of...
Yeah, they do come up with a lot of search results. It may not be for us. Sometimes they come up with some other banks or etc. But they may be related to us. So it helps us give early alerts And using that, we can immediately report it. The reporting and taking them down takes at least 2 to 3 months. Sometimes it happens within a week, but at least we come to know early before the customer coming and telling to us. It's necessary that because customer also does the same thing, right? He's downloading a fake app or he's going to a fake website only because from Google search. He doesn't have any high-tech tools. He's just going through his smartphone, he's going through his Facebook messages, and he sees a post, he clicks on it. So if the same thing is done inside the organization by a team on a daily, regular basis, we can easily track those frauds and immediately try to plug them. So that's what we do. So this fraud verification team takes proactive measures as well as reactive measures. And also they work a lot on educating customers through different channels, through banners inside the app, on what can be, like for example, saying to customers that we do not send WhatsApp messages, so please don't trust WhatsApp messages. Or you need to only pay through the app or through the SMS sent from the customer. So education is one important thing, and second is tracing the frauds upfront by having a separate team. That's very important.
See, basically, me and Srivatsa from the same industry. It's more of a B2B setup, right? And then also the frauds are happening and similar apps like us is floating around. Now, it is very important that how engaged are we? Say, in case of Suraj or in case of us, it's like, what is the frequency of the app the customer actually uses that?
Okay.
And can we use that frequency or the engagement to make him educated that this may be a use case where you get trapped? So it's not about only promoting your business, it's also about that whenever there is a probability of engaging with him. So can we use that interaction where he's wiser than before?
Okay.
Right? So that's what we are trying to do. And even in some cases where we want to check whether our merchants or the partners are getting some kind of messages, we implement those things so quickly that yes, this has been trapped and this has been reported. And rightly said, most important is that how we communicate who is going to be mostly affected. So, and if we can create, say, example, the organizations like us, if we can create a common forum that says something has been a fraud of this type, and it is immediately reported to the counterparts. We may be rivals in business, but ultimately our survival stands on that how we mitigate that entire risk. Right? So in case of that, something which you found out and you can make that other party aware of, and he also creates something and he again shares it back, it makes a faster resolution of something where you want to actually tap them. So it's not about that I found something, I secured myself. It's also about that. It's the ecosystem where I have to contribute, and there the real value comes in.
I would like to mention there is a forum called FACE, FinTech Association for Customer Empowerment. That's a very good organization. We are one of the founding members of FACE, and it's an association of all FinTech apps who are registered and recognized by the regulatory body. And as an association, what FACE does is, so the FinTech members send regular data on what all are their findings with respect to if they have any suggestions on fake apps going around, they can send it to them, as well as they can send suggestions on policies, and these are then communicated to the regulatory bodies. So associations like these help bring out a lot of value.
Does the information spread rapidly? Do they have a mechanism to?
So FACE directly coordinates with the regulatory bodies based on the inputs received from members.
So if I may ask you, Surendra, in your interactions with various financial organizations, what do you see as the most common and what do you see as the most effective mechanisms that these organizations have put in place to be proactive in detecting imposters, duplicates, apps, duplicates?
Apps, as of now, there is no technology to control it. Of course, we claim we have technology, which we are going to present, but otherwise there is no technology. To be honest, I don't use any mobile banking app on my phone, neither my wife. Okay? It's not that I'm not tech savvy, I'm tech savvy, but I realize the risk involved. Second thing, I tell you, when it comes to regulation or when it comes to education, we are far behind than what is required. For example, RBI is still advertising, okay, don't share your PIN. That thing is gone. People are already educated on that. They have to change their education based on what is going on. Okay? So that does not happen. Same thing, regulation. Regulation is a pretty much standard. By that time, even in case of we have IPC for murder, but that does not prevent murder. You know, that only if somebody does murder, then he can be punished after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But what we require is something to block the crime, you know, and that technology is not widely available. And all other technologies like plugin and all that which you had discussed, they are good for the organization. They think, oh, we have put the security, but for hacker, there are ways to bypass them, you know. So I really don't know like how to control fake app, means 100%. But yes, organizations can put some control, some technologies which can, you know, minimize the risk.
I'll put it
But
this way.
organizations are aware of this?
No.
We talk to a lot of banks, okay? I tell you, none of the bank in India, even the top private banks, okay, top private banks, they are aware of fake app, number one. Another thing what happens is, suppose I talk to a CISO. CISO has a checklist of things, okay? So for example, we have an app monitoring service that will control it, the way you, the one you mentioned, which is perfect. But CISO does not have knowledge of how to bypass it. Okay, how to bypass app monitoring service. And the person who is doing fraud or who is doing fake, creating fake app, or the fraudster or hacker, he has knowledge of how to bypass it, you know. So our CISOs, what happens is, in most of the organization, even CISOs or CTOs, they are more bogged down to day-to-day operations than spending time on learning hacker's mind. To be very honest, RBI created a cybersecurity cell, probably you don't know. So I visited there, and the CEO of that person is one retired IPS officer, okay? No, all IPS officer or bureaucrats, they work exactly the same way, but they are basically paper signers, you know, or paper forwarders. They are just postmen. So I discussed with him. I said, instead of appointing 160 years retired IPS officer as CEO, you should appoint one 23-year-old fellow who comes in shorts and, you know, works. We require that kind of person.